There is a tree growing across every desert in the American Southwest that tastes like chocolate. Not chocolate adjacent, not vaguely reminiscent, chocolate with hints of molasses, cinnamon, and caramel. It requires zero irrigation, zero fertilizer. It actually improves the soil it grows in. Indigenous communities survived on it for 8,000 years. And by the end of this video, you will learn its name and how to grow it in your own garden. For the past century, the cattle industry has been trying to eradicate this tree. Ranchers in Texas and Arizona have spent $50 million poisoning it, bulldozing it, and burning it. The United States Department of Agriculture once called it one of the most serious and perplexing problems facing American rangeland. And by the end of this video, you will understand exactly why a tree that tastes like free chocolate became the most hated plant in Texas, and why the cocoa industry hopes you never discover what it can do. Drive through southern Arizona in late summer, pull off the highway near Tucson, walk into the Sonoran Desert, and look at the ground beneath your feet. You will see pods, hundreds of them, yellow and brown, curled like bean pods scattered across the sand. Pick one up, snap it in half, put a piece in your mouth. The flavor will stop you. It tastes like hot chocolate mixed with cinnamon toast. Some pods taste nutty. Some taste so sweet they remind you of brown sugar. Others carry hints of toasted coconut and dates. This is not a laboratory creation. This is not a processed food product. This is a wild desert tree that has been producing free chocolate flavor for millennia while we walked past it and never noticed. The tree is called Mesquite. Walk into the Arizona State Museum in Tucson. Look at the grinding stones on display. These mortars were carved into desert bedrock by the Hohokam people over 1,000 years ago. The smooth depressions in the stone tell a story. Generation after generation of hands grinding mesquite pods into flour, the same flour that kept entire civilizations alive in one of the harshest environments on Earth. The Tohono O'odham people of the Sonoran Desert built their entire calendar around this tree. They designated a specific month to the mesquite harvest. They called it the mesquite bean harvest moon. This was not a minor food source. This was the center of their nutritional world. Now here is where the science confirms what indigenous grandmothers already knew. Researchers have analyzed mesquite flour in laboratories across 3 continents. The results are remarkable. Mesquite flour contains nearly 30% dietary fiber. It contains almost 10% protein. It contains all essential amino acids, including lysine, leucine, and valine. The calcium content is significant. The magnesium is significant. The potassium, iron, and zinc levels rival many celebrated health foods. But the most important number is one that should change how you think about sweetness itself. Mesquite pods have a glycemic index of 25. Compare that to sweet corn at 60. Compare that to white sugar at 100. This means mesquite tastes sweet but does not spike your blood sugar the way processed sweeteners do. For diabetics, this distinction matters enormously. In the 1980s, researchers studied the Pima Indians of Arizona. This community had traditionally consumed mesquite as a dietary staple for thousands of years. Scientists discovered something disturbing. When the Pima population shifted away from traditional mesquite consumption toward modern processed foods, diabetes rates exploded. The research suggested that mesquite and other traditional foods may have protected this population against diabetes for generations. When they stopped eating it, they lost that protection. The decline of mesquite in their diet correlates directly with rising diabetes cases. This is not ancient history. This is a nutritional tragedy that happened within living memory. Now let me tell you what makes this tree an engineering marvel that no human technology can replicate. Mesquite trees have developed root systems that extend 80 to 100 feet below the surface. Some documented roots reach 150 feet deep. To put that in perspective, most fruit trees have roots that extend 10 to 15 feet. Mesquite roots can reach water sources that exist far below anything else can access, and this is why mesquite survives droughts that kill everything around it. But the roots do something even more extraordinary. Tiny nodules on each mesquite root contain bacteria that pull nitrogen directly from the atmosphere and deposit it into the soil. Nitrogen is the nutrient most plants desperately need. In desert environments, nitrogen is even scarcer than water. Scientists have measured this effect precisely. Soil nitrogen levels beneath mesquite canopies are 3 to 7 times higher than in open areas. A single mesquite tree with 30% canopy cover can fix 30 to 40 kilograms of nitrogen per hectare every year. This means mesquite fertilizes itself. It also fertilizes everything growing near it. Researchers have documented that twice as many plants grow under mesquite canopies as in open desert. The tree creates its own ecosystem. It requires no irrigation in desert regions. It requires no fertilizer ever. It improves the soil simply by existing. This is what permanent food infrastructure looks like. Plant mesquite once. It feeds you forever. It feeds your children. It feeds their children. It asks for nothing in return. So why have you never heard of it? The answer begins with cattle. In the 1800s, ranchers brought massive cattle herds into Texas, Arizona, and New Mexico. These ranchers noticed that cattle loved eating mesquite pods. The pods were sweet and nutritious, perfect livestock feed. So ranchers let their cattle graze freely among mesquite groves. Here is what nobody anticipated. Mesquite seeds pass through cattle digestive systems intact. The digestive process actually scarifies the seeds, making them more likely to germinate. And cattle deposit those seeds across the landscape wrapped in perfect fertilizer. Every cow became a mesquite planting machine. The trees spread rapidly across millions of acres. By the early 1900s, ranchers realized they had a problem. Mesquite was taking over grassland they wanted for cattle grazing. The trees that had fed their livestock were now competing with their livestock for space. The war began. In 1931, a rancher named Frank Boyce partnered with the University of Arizona to find ways to kill mesquite. They tried everything: petroleum products, arsenic compounds, acid sprays. Nothing worked permanently. The trees kept coming back. By 1952, USDA declared a mesquite invasion one of the most serious and perplexing problems facing American rangeland. They estimated mesquite had occupied over 70 million acres across Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. 70 million acres of free chocolate growing wild. And the government response was to destroy it. Texas alone spent nearly $50 million over a 10-year period treating 300,000 hectares with herbicides and mechanical removal. Bulldozers flattened mesquite groves. Helicopters sprayed poison from above. Controlled burns swept across the landscape. And here is the darkest part of this story. Before the ranchers arrived, prairie dogs had kept mesquite populations in check naturally. Prairie dogs ate mesquite beans, pods, and shoots. They were a natural control mechanism that had worked for thousands of years. Starting in the early 1900s, ranchers poisoned prairie dog colonies because the rodents competed with cattle for grass. The prairie dog population crashed from nearly 800 million animals to just over 2 million. With the prairie dogs gone, mesquite had no natural predator. The trees exploded across the landscape. The ranchers had created the very problem they spent the next century trying to solve. And the solution they chose was to poison and bulldoze a tree that could have fed millions of people for free. Now let me tell you why this matters right now. Today, this year, walk into any grocery store in America, find the chocolate aisle, look at the prices. After a catastrophic growing season in 2023, cocoa prices began climbing through 2024. On June 13, 2024, cocoa futures hit $11,530 per ton. The previous year average had been $3,182 per ton. Prices eventually spiked to nearly $13,000 per ton. Climate change, disease, and aging trees caused mass crop failure across Ghana and the Ivory Coast. These two countries produce most of the world's chocolate supply. The results reached your shopping cart. Chocolate prices in the United States rose 14% in early 2026 compared to 2025. German chocolate prices jumped nearly 19% in 2025 alone. Major chocolate companies are scrambling to find alternatives. Researchers are studying carob. Scientists are investigating lab-grown cocoa compounds. Billions of dollars are flowing into alternative chocolate research. Meanwhile, 70 million acres of chocolate-flavored trees grow wild across the American Southwest, the same trees the government spent decades trying to eradicate. The irony is almost unbearable. Mesquite looks similar to carob, but they are completely different species. Mesquite belongs to the Prosopis genus. Carob belongs to Ceratonia. Both can function as cocoa alternatives, and mesquite has advantages carob does not. Mesquite grows in harsher conditions. Mesquite fixes its own nitrogen. Mesquite requires no irrigation once established. Some researchers have noted that mesquite could also serve as a coffee alternative. Coffee faces its own supply chain challenges from climate change. A single tree could potentially replace both your morning coffee and your evening chocolate. For free! From your backyard, forever! So how do you actually use it? Harvest mesquite pods when they are dry and yellow-brown and still hanging on the tree. This timing matters. Once monsoon rains arrive in Arizona each summer, mesquite foraging season ends. Pods soaked by rain can develop harmful aflatoxins. Dry pods are safe, wet pods are not safe. If you grind the entire pod, including the skin and the seeds, the resulting flour contains over 40% protein. If you grind just the flesh, you get slightly lower protein but a sweeter flavor. The choice depends on your intended use. One warning: mesquite's high sucrose content tends to gum up regular kitchen grinders. For serious processing, you need a hammer mill. Small-scale producers use commercial grain mills designed for tough seeds. Once you have mesquite flour, the applications are endless. Swap it for cocoa powder and baked goods, add it to pancakes, stir it into oatmeal, or mix it into hot drinks. The flour is naturally gluten-free. It works for vegan recipes. It contains no added sugars because the sweetness comes from the pod itself. You can make mesquite flour into bread. You can ferment it into alcoholic beverages. You can brew it as a coffee substitute. Indigenous communities have been doing all of these things for 8,000 years. The knowledge never disappeared. We just stopped paying attention. The tree never stopped growing. It never stopped producing. It never stopped tasting like chocolate. The only thing that stopped was us remembering what it was for. 8,000 years of knowledge does not disappear because someone decided cows needed more grass. It waits, in the desert, in the dirt, in the pods still hanging from branches in backyards across Arizona, Texas, and New Mexico. It waits for you to remember.